Did you know that a day on Mars lasts 24 hours and 37 minutes? It's almost exactly like an Earth day, just with a little more time to contemplate the sunset, which, by the way, is blue there. It's one of those cosmic coincidences that makes it seem like the universe is whispering a possibility. Hello, dear listener. It's me here again, and you're there, perhaps settled in your bed or in a comfortable armchair. What time is it where you are? I hope this is a peaceful moment for you, an interval between the day's demands and the night's rest. Before we begin our journey, if you appreciate this type of contemplative and educational content, consider subscribing to the channel. It helps me tremendously to continue creating these narratives for you. And if this video brings any interesting reflection, a like would be very welcome. Now we can dive completely into our exploration. Close your eyes if you can, and imagine you're floating gently in space, surrounded by the absolute silence of the cosmos. Before you, a reddish point of light shines with mysterious intensity, like a cosmic ember guarding millennial secrets. This luminous point is Mars, our celestial neighbor, the planet that for decades has awakened our deepest curiosity and our most audacious dreams. Have you ever wondered why Mars fascinates us so much? Why, among all the celestial bodies we know, does this distant world capture our imagination so intensely? Perhaps it's because when we look at that red dot in the night sky, we see not just a planet, but a possibility. A chance to start over, to expand the horizons of human life beyond the boundaries of our terrestrial home. Tonight, as the hours unfold like silk ribbons in time, we'll embark together on an extraordinary journey. We'll explore a question that echoes in the corridors of science. In the minds of visionaries and in the dreams of explorers, what would make Mars habitable? What does this red world lack to be able to sustain not only life as we know it, but the very essence of human experience? Imagine, for an instant, that you're a cosmic architect charged with designing a new home for humanity. What elements would you consider essential? What challenges would you face trying to transform an alien world into a sanctuary for life? These are the questions that will guide us through this narrative, like guiding stars on a moonless night. Mars calls to us with a silent whisper, an invitation written in the universal language of human curiosity. It's a world that was once different, that keeps in its rocks and polar ice the memories of a more aqueous, warmer past, perhaps more hospitable. By studying Mars, we're not just learning about another planet, we're discovering possibilities, expanding our understanding of what it means to be alive in a vast and mysterious universe. In this contemplative journey, we'll discover that the question about Mars' habitability is, actually, a profound reflection on the very nature of life, adaptation, and our relationship with the worlds we inhabit. It's an exploration that will take us from the depths of planetary engineering to the highest peaks of existential philosophy. Take a deep breath, allow your mind to open like a nocturnal flower, and prepare for an adventure that will take us far beyond the limits of our blue world. Together, we'll dream of possibilities that seem like science fiction, but are being shaped by real science, by audacious engineering, and by the human courage to imagine impossible futures. Before dreaming of transformation possibilities, we need to intimately understand today's Mars, this world that reveals itself before us like a cosmic desert of arid beauty and silent hostility. Imagine you're standing on the Martian surface in a hypothetical moment of complete protection against the elements. What would your senses perceive? The first shock would be visual, a horizon painted in shades of rust and ochre, under a sky that oscillates between pale yellow and grayish blue. There's no comforting blue of our terrestrial sky, that color that instinctively calms us and reminds us we're home. On Mars, the sky tells a different story, the story of absence. The Martian atmosphere is so tenuous it barely deserves the name. Composed mainly of carbon dioxide with traces of nitrogen and argon, it has only 1% of Earth's atmospheric density. It's as if you were on an extremely high mountain, where the air is so rarefied that each breath becomes a conscious effort. Except on Mars, even that rarefied air would be completely unbreathable for us, and the cold? The Martian cold is of an intensity that defies our terrestrial experience. Temperatures can range from -80 degrees Celsius in the polar winter to 20 degrees Celsius in equatorial regions during summer. But this apparent variety hides a brutal reality. Most of the time and in most of the planet, Mars is a cosmic freezer where liquid water simply cannot exist stably on the surface. Have you ever experienced that moment on a rigorous winter morning when the air is so cold it seems to cut your lungs? Multiply that sensation and imagine an entire world where this cold is not the exception, but the rule. A world where the atmosphere itself can freeze and fall from the sky like carbon dioxide snow. But perhaps the most unsettling aspect of Mars is its radiative nakedness. Our planet Earth is protected by a powerful magnetic field, an invisible shield that deflects charged particles from solar wind and the most dangerous cosmic rays. Mars lost this shield billions of years ago, being exposed to cosmic radiation like a person walking in a hailstorm without any protection. Imagine living in a world where every moment outdoors exposes your body to radiation levels that, on Earth, we would consider extremely dangerous. It's as if the entire Martian surface were a radioactive exclusion zone, not due to some human accident, but by a natural, permanent, inexorable condition. Water on Mars exists, yes, but mainly as ice at the poles and possibly as underground deposits. Occasionally, we discover evidence of seasonal flows that may contain salt water, but these are precious exceptions in a world dominated by aridity. It's like finding a tear on a stone face, moving in its rarity, but insufficient to sustain life as we know it. And then there's the silence, a silence so profound that even sound behaves differently. The rarefied atmosphere carries sound strangely, distorted. It's a world where even the echo of your own footsteps would sound alien, muffled as if the planet itself were whispering secrets you could never completely decipher. This is the real Mars, the Mars that challenges us, a world of severe beauty and implacable hostility. A planet that seems to have been designed to test the limits of human ingenuity and our capacity to dream of the impossible. Each hostile characteristic of Mars is simultaneously an obstacle and an invitation, a silent question about whether we're capable of transforming the inhospitable into habitable. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to wake up every day in such a world? What would be the psychological experience of living permanently on a frontier between life and an environment that constantly tries to remind you that you don't belong there? But it wasn't always like this. If Martian rocks could speak, what exciting stories they would tell us? Imagine, for a moment, that you're a cosmic archaeologist capable of reading in stones and geological formations the secret biography of a planet. On Mars, this biography reveals chapters of a surprising narrative, the story of a world that was once dramatically different. About 5 to 4 billion years ago, during the period scientists poetically call Noachian, Mars was an almost unrecognizable planet compared to the arid world we know today. Imagine rivers winding through verdant valleys, crystalline lakes reflecting a denser sky, and perhaps even vast oceans covering the lowlands of the northern hemisphere. It was an aquatic Mars, a world where water flowed freely and where conditions for life were not only possible but probable. The evidence of this golden era is engraved on the planet's very face like scars of a lost youth. Drainage valleys serpentine across the Martian surface like fossilized veins, telling the story of rivers that ran for millions of years. Ancient deltas mark the places where these waters met lakes or seas, depositing sediments in layers we can now read like pages of a geological book. Have you ever contemplated the ruins of an ancient city and tried to imagine what life was like there when its streets pulsed with activity? That's how we should look at Mars, like the majestic ruins of a world that once had pulsing life, movement, transformation. Each crater, each dry channel, each rock formation is a silent testimony to an era when this planet breathed differently. What happened then? Why did Mars lose its aquatic grace and transform into the cosmic desert we know today? The answer lies in a planetary tragedy of epic proportions. Gradually, over millions of years, Mars lost its dense atmosphere. Without the protection of a strong magnetic field, solar winds literally blew its atmosphere into space, as if the sun itself were sucking the life from the neighboring planet. It's an image both beautiful and melancholic. Imagine billions of Martian air molecules being torn from the upper atmospheric layers and scattered through interplanetary space, like autumn leaves carried by a cosmic wind. With the rarefied atmosphere, surface pressure dropped drastically, and liquid water could no longer exist stably on the surface. Rivers dried up, lakes evaporated, and the resulting water vapor was also carried away by solar winds. But here's the most fascinating aspect of this story. The marks of that aquatic past haven't completely disappeared. They're there, engraved in stone, waiting for us to interpret them. Each space mission to Mars is like an archaeological expedition revealing more details of this lost narrative. The rovers crossing the Martian surface are our cosmic detectives, collecting evidence of a planetary crime that happened billions of years ago. And there's something deeply moving about this, don't you think? The idea that we're studying not just another planet, but the remains of a world that may have harbored life, that certainly had beauty, movement, transformation. It's as if we were visiting the ghost of a planet that was once alive. This understanding of Mars' past completely changes our perspective on habitability. We're not trying to create something completely artificial and alien. In a way, we're trying to resurrect something that already existed. We're imagining not the creation of a new world, but the rebirth of an ancient world. Have you ever thought about this? That perhaps our dreams of terraforming Mars are not fantasies of impossible engineering, but echoes of a deep planetary memory. As if, somehow mysteriously, we were remembering a Mars we never knew, but that always existed in our collective imagination as a lost possibility. Now, let's delve into one of the most fascinating and challenging aspects of Martian habitability, the atmosphere. Close your eyes and breathe deeply. Feel the air entering your lungs, carrying oxygen to every cell in your body, removing the carbon dioxide we no longer need. This process, so natural and automatic that we rarely think about it, is the result of billions of years of atmospheric evolution on our planet. Earth's atmosphere is a complex chemical symphony. 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, and small amounts of argon, carbon dioxide, and other gases. But more than its composition, it's the density of this atmosphere that makes life possible. It's as if our planet were wrapped in a dense, protective, gaseous blanket, maintaining stable temperatures and gently pressing every surface, every drop of water, every form of life. On Mars, this atmospheric dance is completely different. Imagine you're in a room where the air has been almost completely removed, leaving only a tenuous, almost imperceptible mist. That's what the Martian atmosphere is like, so rarefied that an unprotected human would lose consciousness in seconds, not only from lack of oxygen, but from the very low pressure that would make their blood literally boil. But here's where engineering meets poetry. Some of humanity's most audacious projects involve not just creating protected habitations on Mars, but gradually transforming the planet's entire atmosphere. It's a concept that seems straight out of science fiction, but is being seriously studied by real scientists. Atmospheric terraforming. Imagine, for a moment, that you're a cosmic gardener. How would you make a garden in an atmosphere that barely exists? One of the most fascinating approaches involves the controlled release of superpotent greenhouse gases into the Martian atmosphere. Not the same gases causing problems on our planet, but specific compounds like sulfur hexafluoride or perfluormin, which could gradually warm the Martian atmosphere. The process would be slow, gradual, almost imperceptible day to day, but revolutionary over decades or centuries. As temperature increased, the frozen carbon dioxide at Mars' poles would begin to sublimate, adding mass to the atmosphere. With a denser atmosphere, temperatures would stabilize at higher levels, creating a positive feedback cycle. It's like watching a planet awaken from a millennial sleep. First small, almost imperceptible changes, then more dramatic transformations. Eventually, perhaps, the possibility of stable liquid water on the surface. And who knows, much later, a breathable atmosphere for humans without protective equipment. But there's another approach, perhaps more poetic, the creation of localized atmospheric ecosystems. Imagine giant domes, transparent like cosmic soap bubbles, each containing its own carefully controlled atmosphere. Inside these domes, the air would be dense, warm, breathable. Plants would grow, producing oxygen. People would live, work, love, dream. Have you ever wondered what the sound of children playing in an artificially created Martian atmosphere would be like? What would the echo of their laughter be like bouncing off the walls of a protective dome? while outside the Martian wind whispers with its rarefied and alien voice. There's something deeply human about this vision, the idea that no matter how hostile the environment, we'll find a way to create pockets of life, oases of habitability. It's as if we carry with us the atmospheric essence of Earth, planting it in alien soils like seeds of possibility. And then there's the more philosophical question: by transforming Mars' atmosphere, would we be creating a new Earth, or would we be discovering a new way of being human? Would terraforming be an act of atmospheric colonization, or a form of coevolution between our species and a new world? Water is the silent protagonist of every story of life we know. It's the first thing we look for when exploring new worlds, the last thing we abandon when dreaming of habitability. On Mars, water's story is simultaneously a cosmic tragedy and a promise of resurrection. Close your eyes and imagine you're standing on the edge of an earth river on a spring morning. Hear the gentle murmur of flowing water. Feel the humid breeze touching your face. Observe how sunlight dances on the moving surface. Now, try to imagine this same scene on Mars, and you'll begin to understand the magnitude of the challenge we face. Water on Mars exists, but as a ghost of itself. Mainly frozen at the poles, occasionally as vapor in the rarefied atmosphere, possibly as underground brines that can barely maintain themselves liquid due to extreme salinity and low temperatures. It's as if all Martian water were whispering, "I'm here, but not in the way you expect." Mars poles guard substantial quantities of water ice, mixed with frozen carbon dioxide in a kind of cosmic ice cream of alien composition. During the Martian summer, part of this ice sublimates directly to vapor, creating small localized storms and seasonal atmospheric changes. It's a hydrological cycle, yes, but so different from Earth's that it seems to belong to another universe. But here's where human engineering meets the poetry of possibility. Imagining ways to liberate all this frozen water and bring it back to liquid life. Some visionary projects speak of giant orbital mirrors, focusing solar light on Mars poles to accelerate melting. Others imagine specialized nuclear reactors, generating enough heat to vaporize polar ice and redistribute humidity through the atmosphere. Have you ever contemplated the beauty of a lake emerging where before there was only dry land? Now, imagine this transformation on a planetary scale. Imagine Martian valleys that haven't seen flowing water for billions of years being gradually filled by streams, lagoons, perhaps even small seas. It's an image that challenges our perception of what's possible, what's real. But the true magic may be hidden below the surface. Growing evidence suggests the existence of underground aquifers on Mars, reservoirs of salt water that may extend across vast regions of the planet. It's as if Mars had a hidden aquatic circulatory system, pulsing silently in the depths of an apparently dead world. Imagine the possibilities: Martian colonies that drill alien soil searching for these hidden liquid treasures. Small pumps extracting salt water from the depths and desalination systems transforming this resource into drinking water, irrigation water, water for life. It's technology we already master on Earth, but on Mars it would gain an almost sacred meaning. And then there are the most recent and intriguing discoveries. Seasonal flows of salt water that appear and disappear on Martian slopes during the warmest months. They're like tears of the planet. Small reminders that Mars aquatic life hasn't died completely, it just transformed, adapted, found minimal ways to persist. Perhaps the deepest question isn't, where is the water on Mars? But how can we dance with the water that already exists? Instead of trying to recreate Earth's oceans, perhaps we should learn to live in harmony with Mars' unique water cycles. Perhaps Martian habitability doesn't require recreating Earth, but inventing a new form of relationship with water. Have you ever wondered what the first Martian water drunk by a human being would taste like? Would it be salty, mineral, laden with the chemical memory of billions of years? Or would it be purified, processed, a technological version of the water our species has always known? What if the real challenge isn't finding water on Mars, but learning to love Martian water for what it is, not for what we expect it to be? Now we come to one of the most invisible and paradoxically most critical aspects of Martian habitability: radiation. It's a topic that forces us to contemplate forces we cannot see, feel, or hear, but that permeate every cubic centimeter of space around Mars like energetic ghosts of devastating power. Imagine you're in a completely dark room, but you know you're being constantly bombarded by invisible projectiles that traverse your body at speeds near light speed. There's no pain, no immediate sensation, but every second, trillions of these microscopic projectiles are subtly altering the molecular structure of your cells. This is approximately the experience of cosmic radiation. On Earth, we live protected by a magnificent and invisible shield, our planetary magnetic field. It's as if our planet were a giant magnet with force lines extending thousands of kilometers into space, deflecting most of the dangerous radiation coming from the sun and deep space. It's such effective protection that we rarely think about it, like breathing or feeling gravity. Mars lost this shield billions of years ago. Imagine a medieval knight losing his shield in the middle of battle, becoming vulnerable to every arrow, every lance, every enemy blow. That's how Mars stands before cosmic radiation, completely exposed, defenseless, receiving radiation doses that would make any terrestrial life form extremely vulnerable. But here's where human ingenuity meets survival necessity. We've learned to create our own shields. Imagine Martian habitats built with thick walls of regolith, the iron-rich, Martian soil that can absorb a significant amount of radiation. Or underground structures, artificial caves excavated in Martian rock, where colonists would live protected like buried seeds waiting for spring. There's something deeply poetic about the idea that the first human Martians will live like our most primitive ancestors, in caves. But these will be high-tech caves, equipped with life support systems, hydroponic gardens, advanced laboratories. It's as if technology and primitive survival met in a necessary and surprising embrace. Have you ever wondered what the psychology of living permanently protected from radiation would be like? What would it be like to know that every trip to the Martian surface requires protective equipment not just against cold and lack of air, but against invisible forces that can damage your DNA? It's a way of life that would require constant courage, serene acceptance of calculated risk. Some more ambitious projects speak of recreating an artificial magnetic field for Mars. Imagine satellites in orbit generating coordinated electromagnetic fields, creating a protective bubble around the entire planet. It's technology we don't completely master yet, but it's on the horizon of possibilities. It would be like giving Mars a new magnetic heart, pulsing with artificial energy but with genuinely protective purpose. There's also solar radiation more intense on Mars due to the rarefied atmosphere that offers little protection. Solar storms, which on Earth only create beautiful auroras, on Mars could be potentially lethal events for unprotected colonists. It's like living in a world where the sun itself, source of all life, is simultaneously an essential ally and an occasional enemy. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect is how this radioactive reality could shape Martian culture. Perhaps the first Martians develop a completely new relationship with the concept of protection, community, interdependence. When leaving home can be literally dangerous without adequate protection, each journey outside becomes a small expedition, each safe return a small victory. What if the need for radiation protection created completely new forms of architecture, art, cultural expression? Imagine murals painted on the inner walls of protected habitats, celebrating life that flourishes despite the invisible hostility of the external environment. Have you ever thought that perhaps cosmic radiation, this apparently intangible challenge, might be exactly what forces humanity to develop protection technologies that will eventually serve us not only on Mars, but on even more distant journeys through the cosmos? And now, my dear listener, we come to the technological heart of our journey, the concrete solutions that engineers, scientists, and visionaries are developing to transform Mars from a hostile world into a second home for humanity. This is where science fiction meets real science, where impossible dreams become engineering projects with timelines, budgets, and prototypes. Imagine you're an architect receiving the most challenging commission in history, designing a city for a world where almost everything is different. Gravity is weaker, the atmosphere is toxic and rarefied, temperatures are extreme, and cosmic radiation constantly bombards the surface. Where would you start? The first generation of Martian habitats will probably be built before the first colonists even arrive, by autonomous robots using 3D printing techniques with local materials. Imagine intelligent machines extracting iron and silicates from Martian soil, mixing them with polymers brought from Earth, and literally printing structures layer by layer, like a giant 3D printer building houses instead of small objects. These first structures will be necessarily functional above all else. Geodesic domes covered by regolith for radiation protection, with multiple atmospheric sealing layers. Each habitat will be like a bubble of terrestrial life implanted in an alien world, maintaining carefully controlled pressure, temperature, and atmospheric composition. But here's where engineering becomes almost magical: closed life support systems. Imagine a small artificial ecosphere where every air molecule, every drop of water, every grain of soil is constantly recycled. The carbon dioxide you exhale is captured by genetically modified plants that convert it back into oxygen. The water you use is purified and reused in a continuous molecular dance. Your own organic waste becomes fertilizer for the hydroponic gardens that produce your food. It's a level of efficiency and integration that challenges our terrestrial experience. On Earth, we live in an ecosystem so vast we can afford waste. On Mars, every atom counts, every process must be optimized, every system must work in perfect harmony with all others. Have you ever thought what it would be like psychologically to live in such intimate dependence on technological systems? Every breath depending on the correct functioning of CO2 scrubbers. Every sip of water the result of complex recycling processes. It's a way of life that would require deep trust in technology and, simultaneously, intimate understanding of how each system works. Energy systems on Mars present their own fascinating challenges. Solar panels work, but with about 43% of the efficiency they would have on Earth, due to greater distance from the sun and dust storms that can last months. So, engineers are exploring small modular nuclear reactors, radioisotope thermoelectric generators, and even the possibility of harnessing geothermal energy from Martian depths. Imagine a Martian colony powered by a small nuclear reactor buried in alien soil, generating clean electricity and constant heat. It's technology that already exists. But on Mars, it would gain existential importance, not just convenience, but literally the difference between life and death. And then there are transportation and locomotion technologies, personal rovers for scientific exploration, pressurized vehicles for longer journeys, perhaps even small craft for suborbital flights between different Martian colonies. Imagine red roads winding through alien landscape, connecting oases of human life across a desert extending beyond the horizon. Local manufacturing will be crucial. Metal 3D printers capable of producing replacement parts, tools, even basic electronic components using materials extracted from Martian soil. It's as if each colony had to become a small, complete industrial civilization capable of producing everything it needs to survive and prosper. But perhaps the most impressive engineering is medical. Imagine diagnostic and treatment equipment that works perfectly in Mars' reduced gravity, where a 70 kilograms human body weighs only 26 kilograms. AI-assisted robotic surgery for emergencies when specialists aren't available. Telemedicine systems connecting Martian patients with doctors on Earth, despite communication delays that can reach 24 minutes. Have you ever imagined what it would be like to be born on Mars? What would be the development of a child in different gravity, in an artificial atmosphere, under alien-colored skies? These are questions Martian medical engineering will have to address, not just maintaining life, but allowing it to flourish in completely new conditions. Now we enter a territory where science meets art, where survival becomes creation, Martian agriculture. Imagine for a moment that you're a cosmic gardener, charged with making life flourish in soil that has never known roots. Under a distant sun that has never warmed green leaves, Martian soil is simultaneously a promise and a challenge. Rich in iron that gives it its characteristic color, it also contains essential elements like silicon, oxygen, and traces of other minerals necessary for plant life. But it's sterile soil, without the microorganisms that make Earth soil a living and pulsing ecosystem. It's like a blank page waiting to be written with the ink of life. The first Martian farms won't look like anything we know on Earth. Imagine geodesic greenhouses of transparent and resistant glass, creating small terrestrial worlds within the Martian world. Inside these domes, the atmosphere is controlled, temperature is regulated, and every drop of water is precious like liquid diamond. Hydroponics and aeroponics will become not just agricultural techniques but art forms. Plants growing without traditional soil, their roots bathed in carefully balanced nutrient solutions, or suspended in air and fed by nutrient sprays. It's agriculture as sculpture, where each plant is positioned with mathematical precision to maximize photosynthetic efficiency. Have you ever contemplated the beauty of a growing plant? The silent mystery of seeds transforming into life, leaves unfolding like small green miracles? On Mars, every sprout will be a triumph, every fruit a victory against environmental hostility. The first Martian tomatoes, the first red potatoes, ironically growing on the red planet. The first lettuce leaves created under artificial light in an alien atmosphere. But here's where science becomes almost magical. Plants, genetically modified specifically for Mars. Imagine varieties that thrive in lower solar light levels, that are more resistant to radiation, that can even process Martian soil compounds that would be toxic to normal terrestrial plants. It's accelerated evolution, directed by human intelligence to create life suitable for a new world. Some of these plants could be more than just food sources. Imagine trees designed to maximize oxygen production, plants that absorb carbon dioxide from the Martian atmosphere with superhuman efficiency, modified mosses that can grow directly on the Martian surface, beginning the long process of preparing soil for more complex life forms. Martian gardens will also be psychological refuges. After days looking at landscapes of red rock and yellowish sky, imagine the emotional relief of entering a greenhouse and seeing the familiar green of terrestrial plants. The smell of wet earth, even if it's artificial soil, the gentle whisper of leaves in recycled air, the comforting feeling that life finds a way, always finds a way. And then there's the deeper question, as these plants adapt to Mars over generations, they'll gradually become more Martian and less terrestrial. Within decades or centuries, we may have species that exist only on Mars, plants that evolve to thrive specifically in the unique conditions of the red planet. Imagine entire forests of trees that have never seen Earth, fruits with unique flavors that only exist under the distant Martian sun, flowers with colors that evolve to attract pollinating insects also adapted to Martian conditions. It would be the birth of a completely new biosphere, a second Genesis happening before our eyes. Have you ever wondered what a Martian apple would taste like? Would it be sweeter, more acidic, or have a completely new flavor? Impossible to compare with any terrestrial fruit? And what would be the perfume of the first flowers to sprout naturally in Martian soil, without greenhouses, without artificial protection? Perhaps the real miracle isn't making terrestrial life survive on Mars, but allowing Martian life to be born, grow, and become something completely new and beautiful. Now, we need to talk about something no technology can completely solve, but which is absolutely crucial for Martian habitability: the human mind. What would it be like, psychologically, to live permanently on an alien world? How would our psyche adapt to realities we've never faced in our species' entire history? Imagine waking up every morning and looking out the window at a landscape that never truly changes, without seasons as we know them, without the familiar cycle of leaves that are born and die, without the dance of clouds in a blue sky. The Martian sky has its own beauty, amber and pink tones during sunset, dust storms that can cover the entire planet, but it's an alien beauty which can be simultaneously fascinating and deeply disorienting. The absence of visible life would be, perhaps, one of the most psychologically challenging aspects. On Earth, we're constantly surrounded by signs of life: birds singing, insects buzzing, plants growing, other humans walking. On Mars, at least initially, you could look to the horizon and see only ... emptiness, rocks, dust, silence. It's a loneliness of cosmic dimensions. Have you ever experienced absolute silence? Perhaps in a deep cave or on a heavy snow night. Multiply that experience and imagine a silence that extends not just in the space around you, but in the consciousness that this silence extends across an entire planet. It's a type of quietude that can be simultaneously deeply meditative and psychologically challenging. Claustrophobia would be another constant challenge. Even in the most spacious greenhouses and habitats, Martian colonists would always be conscious that they're living inside artificial bubbles of habitability. Every exit requires protective equipment. Every journey outside is limited by life support system capacity. It's like living permanently in a submarine or space station. But here's something fascinating. Evidence from human psychology suggests our species has extraordinary adaptive capacity. People who live in extreme environments on Earth, Antarctic research stations, submarines, space stations, frequently report not just adaptation, but deep appreciation for the beauty and uniqueness of their environments. Perhaps Martians will develop a completely new aesthetic. Perhaps they'll learn to see beauty in rock formations sculpted by millennial winds, in dust storms that paint the sky with impossible colors, in the tenuous auroras that sometimes dance in the rarefied atmosphere when solar particles interact with the Martian ionosphere. Community would become absolutely essential. In a situation where your survival literally depends on cooperation with other people, where each individual has knowledge and skills crucial to the group, human relationships would gain an intensity and importance we may have lost in modern Earth. Imagine community celebrations in Martian habitats, birthdays where the entire colony gathers because each person is precious, improvised festivals to break monotony, invented rituals to mark the passage of time in a world where seasons are different and days are slightly longer than terrestrial ones. And then there's the unique perspective Martians would have of Earth. Imagine looking at the night sky and seeing Earth as a pale blue dot, knowing that there lies all the rest of humanity. It would be an experience of cosmic perspective that few humans have ever experienced, seeing your home planet from the outside, viscerally understanding that we're all passengers on a small blue sphere traveling through the cosmos. Have you ever wondered what the sense of identity would be like for the first humans born on Mars? Would they consider themselves Earthlings? Martians? Something completely new? What would it be like to grow up knowing your home is a world your parents chose, not a place where your species evolved naturally? Perhaps Mars' psychological challenges force humanity to develop new forms of mental resilience, new contemplative practices, new ways of finding meaning and beauty in environments that initially seem hostile. Perhaps Martians become, necessarily, cosmic philosophers, deep contemplatives, people who learn to find the extraordinary in the apparently desolate. Now let's explore a fascinating and perhaps inevitable possibility that the first truly established Martians live mainly underground, creating entire civilizations excavated in the red planet's rock. It's an image that echoes our most primitive origins, but implemented with cutting-edge technology. Imagine descending through tunnels carefully excavated in Martian rock, illuminated by LEDs that mimic terrestrial sunlight. The walls aren't rough rock, but lined with insulating materials and decorated with art created by colonists. The air is warm, pressurized, breathable. It's like entering a secret city hidden in the entrails of an alien world. The advantages of living underground on Mars are compelling from an engineering standpoint. Underground temperature is more stable, protected from surface extreme variations. Rock offers natural protection against cosmic radiation, each meter of depth significantly reducing exposure. And there's less concern about dust storms or meteorites that occasionally strike the Martian surface. But more than that, imagine the unique architectural possibilities of an underground civilization. Large excavated chambers that could house hundreds of people, connected by tunnel networks like a three-dimensional city. Hydroponic gardens and artificial caverns illuminated by LED systems that never turn off. Laboratories, workshops, recreation areas, all protected by the solid mass of the planet itself. Have you ever visited an underground cathedral or a mine transformed into cultural space? There's something deeply moving about spaces excavated in rock. A feeling of primordial security, of return to Earth's womb, or in this case to Mars' womb. Underground colonists could develop an intimate relationship with the planet's very substance, knowing every type of rock, every mineral deposit, every geological variation. Excavation would be done by specialized robots, machines that could work tirelessly, removing tons of rock and creating habitable spaces with millimetric precision. Imagine perfectly circular tunnels, caverns with vaulted ceilings that distribute weight uniformly, ventilation systems that circulate fresh air through kilometers of underground corridors. And then there's the possibility of discovering existing natural caverns. Mars has lava tubes, caverns formed by ancient volcanic activity that could be transformed into ready-made habitats, needing only atmospheric sealing and life support systems. It would be like finding pre-built apartments by the planet itself, waiting for millions of years for their first tenants. Imagine the unique acoustics of these underground spaces. Music echoing through Martian rock caverns, creating reverberations never heard before. Intimate conversations in curved tunnels where every word is absorbed by alien rock. Perhaps underground Martians develop unique forms of sound art, taking advantage of the specific acoustic properties of their excavated environments. Lighting would be crucial for psychological well-being. Systems that mimic Earth's solar cycle, gradually changing from warm tones in the morning to blue-whites at midday and back to warm tones at night. Some spaces could have virtual windows, screens, showing terrestrial landscapes or even real-time transmissions from the Martian surface. But perhaps the most poetic aspect of these underground civilizations is how they could expand organically. Each generation excavating new tunnels, creating new spaces, expanding the underground network like roots of a cosmic tree growing through rock. In centuries, there could be entire cities connected by hundreds of kilometers of tunnels, a true Martian metropolis hidden from the hostile universe above. Have you ever thought what it would be like to belong to a lineage of cosmic excavators? To know that your grandparents literally shaped with their own hands and machines the space where you live. Each tunnel would have a history, each cavern would be a family conquest transmitted through generations. What if these underground cities eventually became more cozy and habitable than many places on Earth itself? What if the need to live underground forced Martians to create forms of community life more intimate, more cooperative, more harmonious than anything we know? We now come to one of the deepest and most philosophically provocative questions of our journey. Should we transform Mars to be more like Earth, or should we transform ourselves to be more suitable for Mars? It's a question that touches the very core of what it means to be human and our relationship with the environments we inhabit. Terraforming is the grand dream of transforming Mars into a second planet Earth. Imagine a process that would last centuries or millennia, gradually thickening the atmosphere, warming the planet, melting the ice poles and creating oceans where today there's only rocky desert. It's a planetary engineering project so ambitious it challenges our understanding of what's possible. But consider for a moment the alternative. Instead of transforming Mars, transform ourselves. Imagine humans genetically modified to thrive in Mars' rarefied atmosphere, with more efficient lungs, greater radiation tolerance, perhaps even the ability to extract more energy from less oxygen. Would it still be human, or would it be the birth of a new species? Have you ever contemplated what defines our essential humanity? Is it our specific physical form, our need for terrestrial oxygen, our dependence on specific temperatures? Or is it something more intangible, our consciousness, our capacity to love, create, question, dream? Terraforming has an irresistible poetic appeal. Imagine standing on a Martian hill in a few centuries, breathing real air without equipment, feeling Martian rain falling from the sky, now blue, on your unprotected skin. Imagine children playing in Martian meadows, terrestrial animals running free through the red landscape that became green. It's a vision of continuity, of taking terrestrial life to the stars. But terraforming also raises profound ethical questions. Mars has its own history, its own planetary identity. By transforming it into a copy of Earth, would we be preserving life or destroying the uniqueness of a unique world? What if microscopic Martian life exists in the planet's depths? Would we inadvertently be committing genocide of life forms we don't even know yet? Human adaptation, on the other hand, offers a more reverent approach to the planet we intend to inhabit. Imagine humans who learn to love Mars' yellowish sky, who find beauty in dust storms, who feel at home in reduced gravity. It would be a form of coevolution, our species learning to dance with a different world instead of forcing it to dance with us. Technologies like CRISPR gene editing, advanced gene therapy, and even mechanical modifications, cyborgs, could allow humans to adapt to environments we today consider impossible. Imagine people with implants that filter radiation, genetic modifications that allow processing atmospheres with less oxygen, or even brain-computer interfaces that expand our cognitive capacity to deal with complex environmental realities. But perhaps the answer isn't choosing between terraforming or human adaptation. Perhaps it's doing both, gradually, over centuries. Imagine a process where humans partially adapt to Mars while simultaneously making Mars partially more habitable. An evolutionary dance between species and planet, each gradually changing to meet the other halfway. Think about the cultural and spiritual implications. Martians who breathe a different atmosphere, who see colors that terrestrial humans can't perceive, who have a different bodily relationship with gravity. Would they still be us? Or would they be our evolutionary descendants, a branch of the human tree that followed a different path through the cosmos? And then there's the deepest question of all. If we can transform Mars or transform ourselves for Mars, does that mean we can do the same with other worlds? Venus, Europa, Titan? Would we be opening the door to a truly interstellar humanity, capable of inhabiting worlds we can't even imagine yet? Have you ever wondered if the real question isn't about Mars, but about our own capacity for transformation? If perhaps the true test isn't our engineering ability, but our courage to become something new, something greater than we are today? What if Mars habitability is just the first step in a journey that will lead us to completely redefine what it means to be human in the universe? Imagine, if you can, a morning not too distant in the future. The year might be 2157, perhaps 2203. You wake up in a small residence within the first permanent colony on Mars, established several decades ago. Outside your window, the rising sun paints the Martian sky with amber and pink tones that have become familiar and beloved. This is the new human normal. The colony grew organically, like terrestrial cities grew before modern urban planning. It started with a small group of prefabricated habitats, connected by pressurized tunnels. But over years, decades, generations, it expanded like a living organism. New modules added when more colonists arrived. Community gardens that began as scientific experiments and became the social heart of the community. You walk through the covered streets of this small Martian city, observing children who were born here playing in parks where every plant was carefully chosen and cultivated. These children have never seen a terrestrial ocean, never felt natural rain falling from the sky, never breathed air that didn't pass through filters and processors. For them, this is the normal world. Earth is just a story their parents tell, a blue dot in the night sky. The colony's economy is fascinating to contemplate. There's no money in the traditional sense. How could there be, in a community where everyone's survival depends on everyone's cooperation? Instead, there's a complex system of contributions and shared resources. Some colonists are specialists in life support system maintenance. Others are artists creating beauty in a world that initially offered little. Still, others are explorers, constantly expanding knowledge about this alien world. The first colonists were necessarily scientists, engineers, specialized technicians. But the generations that followed include Martian poets, sculptors who work with local rock, musicians who compose symphonies for the unique acoustics of pressurized habitats. Martian art is being born, developing aesthetics that never existed on Earth. Have you ever imagined what Martian cuisine would be like? The first meals were scientific rations, precisely balanced for nutrition and longevity. But humans are creatures who transform necessity into pleasure, survival into culture. Now, there are Martian chefs experimenting with ingredients grown in Martian soil, creating flavors that exist only here, dishes that tell the story of human adaptation through taste. Communications with Earth are constant but limited by time delays. Depending on the planet's orbital positions, a message can take from 4 to 24 minutes to travel from one world to another. This created a unique form of communication, not real-time conversations, but deep, reflective, thoughtful digital letter exchanges. Martian families send long videos to terrestrial relatives, and vice versa, creating family archives that document humanity's expansion through the solar system. The colony's governance is necessarily cooperative. Important decisions are made collectively because errors can mean death for everyone. But this created a form of democracy more intimate and responsible than many terrestrial societies. Every voice counts because every person is essential for the community's functioning. And then there are the unique rituals they developed. celebrations of Earth Day, when the home planet is visible in the night sky, ceremonies marking the arrival of new colonists or the birth of Martian children, memorials for those who died far from home, buried in the soil of a world they chose as their final home. Perhaps the most moving aspect is how this small community keeps Earth's memory alive while creating new Martian traditions. Digital libraries containing all terrestrial literature, music, and art, but also spaces for originally Martian creations, cultural expressions born from the encounter between human spirit and this red world. Martian children learn about terrestrial oceans through virtual simulations, but also learn to read Martian rock formations as natural signs, to predict dust storms by sky color, to find beauty in arid landscapes their terrestrial ancestors would consider desolate. Can you imagine the feeling of pride and melancholy of the first colonists seeing their children grow as true Martians? The joy of seeing human life flourishing in an impossible world, mixed with nostalgic longing for a planet these young Martians will never call home. And now, my dear companion of this contemplative journey, we come to the threshold of what is perhaps the most extraordinary perspective of all. Mars not as a final destination, but as a starting point. A bold first step in a cosmic adventure that could take humanity far beyond what we can imagine today. Imagine standing on the Martian surface a few decades in the future, looking at the night sky with eyes that learn to see possibilities where before they saw only distant points of light. Jupiter and its moons, Europa with its underwater oceans, Ganymede with its habitation possibilities, Titan with its dense atmosphere and methane lakes. Each of them stopped being just an astronomical object and became a potential destination. The experience of making Mars habitable will teach us lessons we simply couldn't learn on Earth: how to create artificial atmospheres on airless worlds, how to extract vital resources from alien soils, how to maintain functional human communities in extreme isolation, how to adapt terrestrial technologies to work in different gravities, impossible temperatures, environments that challenge every assumption about what life requires. Each solution developed for Martian challenges will become a tool for even more challenging worlds. The atmospheric recycling systems created for Martian habitats could work on Jupiter's icy moons. The alien soil agriculture techniques developed on Mars could be adapted for asteroids or space stations. The psychological experience of living far from Earth will prepare us for even longer journeys, even more remote destinations. Have you ever contemplated the possibility that we're living in the historical moment when humanity stops being a planetary species and becomes an interstellar species? Perhaps the children being born today are the last generations for whom Earth is the only possible human home. Imagine mining bases on asteroids, taking advantage of resources that on Earth are rare or scarce. Self-sufficient space stations orbiting different planets, each specialized in specific scientific research or industrial production. Generation ships carrying human families on decade-long journeys toward other star systems, taking with them seeds of terrestrial and Martian life to planets orbiting stars we haven't even discovered yet. Mars terraforming will teach us if it's possible and desirable to transform entire worlds to suit human life. But perhaps it will also teach us something even more valuable: how to transform ourselves to suit new worlds, how to maintain our essential humanity while adapting to realities our ancestors could never imagine. And then there are the deeper philosophical implications. If we can make Mars flourish with life, this will fundamentally change our understanding of life's place in the universe. We'll no longer be a cosmic anomaly confined to a single blue world. We'll be galactic gardeners, capable of planting seeds of life in soils that never knew spring. Perhaps we'll discover that life is much more adaptable, more resilient, more determined to exist than we ever imagined. Perhaps the question isn't where else can life exist, but where can't life learn to exist, given enough time and opportunity? Imagine the works of art that will be created by humans who grew up seeing multiple worlds in the sky, who think in interplanetary terms, who consider it natural for humanity to inhabit various worlds simultaneously. Imagine the philosophies that will be born from experiences that simply don't exist today, the experience of belonging to multiple worlds, of seeing Earth as part of a larger home that includes Mars, Jupiter's moons, perhaps planets orbiting other stars. Music composed by someone who grew up hearing the Martian wind will be different from terrestrial music. Poetry written under two suns on an extrasolar planet will express feelings that terrestrial words can't yet capture. Science developed by minds that grew up thinking on a galactic scale will solve problems we can't even formulate today. Have you ever wondered if we're on the threshold not just of becoming an interplanetary species, but of becoming something fundamentally new? If perhaps the true importance of making Mars habitable isn't about Mars itself, but about discovering we're capable of much more than we imagined. Each challenge overcome on Mars will prepare us for even greater challenges. Each creative solution developed will give us confidence to try the impossible again. Each generation of Martians who grow up seeing two worlds as natural home will be better prepared to consider three worlds, four worlds, entire star systems as natural human territory. And perhaps in a future we can barely glimpse, there will be children growing up in a space station orbiting Proxima Centauri, looking at the night sky and seeing not just stars but worlds, destinations, possibilities. And they'll say to their parents, "Tell me again the story about when humanity lived only on Earth, and how our brave ancestors first learned to make other worlds flourish with life." Mars habitability is just the beginning of a much longer story, the story of how a small and determined species learned to make the entire universe become home. And so, dear listener, we come to the end of this contemplative journey through Martian possibilities, but perhaps we're also arriving at the beginning of something much greater. Are you still there with me? Do you feel the gentle weight of time that passed while we explored these territories of possibility together? The world around you has changed since we began. Perhaps it's later now. Perhaps the lights outside have changed. Perhaps you yourself have changed a little through this contemplation. We've traveled an extraordinary path together. We began looking at Mars as an inhospitable world, a cosmic desert of arid beauty and implacable hostility. We discovered its aquatic memories hidden in rocks, contemplated the challenges of rarefied atmosphere, scarce water, invisible radiation. We explored audacious engineering that could transform obstacles into possibilities. We visited glass gardens where terrestrial plants learned to grow in alien soil, descended to underground cities where humans could live like protected seeds waiting for cosmic spring. We contemplated the psychological dimensions of living in a foreign world, the first colonies where Martian children would grow up seeing two worlds as natural home. And finally, we looked beyond Mars, to horizons extending far beyond what our imagination can reach. The possibility that this red world is just the first page of a much longer story about how life finds ways to flourish wherever we plant seeds of possibility. But perhaps the true discovery of this journey isn't about Mars itself. Perhaps it's about ourselves. About our apparently infinite capacity to dream of impossibilities and then find ways to make them real. About how each challenge we consider unsolvable eventually becomes just another step on a staircase taking us to altitudes we never imagined reaching. Think about how many times, throughout human history, we've been confronted with barriers that seemed absolutely insurmountable. The ocean was impassable until we invented ships. The sky was unreachable until we invented airplanes. Space was unthinkable until we stepped on the moon. And now, Mars, which seems so impossible today, may be just another frontier waiting to be crossed by human ingenuity and determination. The question, what would make Mars habitable, is actually a question about ourselves. It's a question about our courage to imagine futures that seem like science fiction, our persistence in pursuing solutions to problems that seem impossible, our capacity to adapt and grow and become more than we are today. When we look at Mars and ask how to make it habitable, we're really asking, how far can our species go? How creative can we be? How resilient are we? How deeply committed are we to the survival and flourishing of life, not just in the small blue oasis where we were born, but anywhere in the cosmos where we can plant seeds of possibility? And perhaps the most beautiful answer is that we still don't know our own limits. Each generation discovers it's capable of more than the previous generation imagined possible. Our ancestors couldn't imagine we would fly. Our grandparents couldn't imagine we would walk on the moon. Perhaps our children will do things we consider impossible today. Not just live on Mars, but flourish there, create beauty there, find forms of love and art and meaning that are only possible under alien skies. Mars habitability isn't just a technical question about atmospheres and temperature and radiation. It's a question about what it means to be alive in a vast and mysterious universe. It's a question about whether we have the courage to expand our definition of home to include not just the world where we were born, but any world where we can learn to belong. Thank you for accompanying me on this journey through Martian possibilities. Thank you for your open mind, your curiosity, your willingness to dream with me about futures that may seem impossible, but that are perhaps closer than we imagine. Each person who allows themselves to contemplate these horizons becomes part of the collective force that will eventually make them real. And now, in the quietude that follows the end of our exploration, I leave you with a question to carry with you. If we discovered tomorrow that it's possible to make Mars completely habitable, but the project would take 1,000 years to complete and require all of humanity working together through generations, would you vote to begin?